On April 30th, 1975, about 120,000 Vietnamese fled Vietnam as the North finally captured it. It was a struggle for many as they would flee on boats, crossing the dangerous waters to different parts of the world. Some would die of diseases, dehydration, or dangerous weather. Many boats were robbed of their goods and captured passengers for human trafficking. Most would end up in Guam where camps were set up in the US to house the refugees. However, there were those who stayed, and there were mainly women who waited for their husbands that were prisoners of war. One of these women was my mom, who you can see in this picture, standing next to my dad. Both of them grew up on a farm and later found each other. They fell in love at a young age and got married around the age of 18. Around the start of the Vietnam War, my dad was enlisted and he left for years to come. When he became a prisoner of war at the fall of Saigon, it wasn't until 8 years later that my mom would see my dad again. It was a hard journey for her when he was gone, as she struggled to feed her children. She was scared for him and many days felt lonely. For my dad, it was much harder and treacherous. The re-education camps were designed to reconstruct the POW's perspective on communism and realign them to current doctrine. The methods can be cruel and abusive as compliance is necessary for survival. My dad managed to overcome the encampment and made it back home to my mom and my sister. This was a photo of my sister and I with my grandmother preparing for our move to the US. You can see that our home is not your average home in the US. The walls are stained with leaks, cracks are sporadic throughout, with old furniture that gives it a grim-like present. It wasn't a beautiful home, but it provided the comfort we needed and housed irreplaceable memories. At the right side, you will see the sewing machine that my mom and her sister used to pay for the necessities around the home. The job pays little, but with the money given, we could buy enough rice to feed everyone for the week. Today, all my family members have their own home with the luxuries we would have never dreamed of. This photo shows us where we started and how dreams can become a reality. Perhaps the most significant part of this photo is the symbolism. In the photo, my sister and I are dressed and ready to head to the airport. We rarely dress like this, but this was an occasion to present ourselves to a new start. In my hand, you will see a can of Pepsi. It may seem that I'm just another kid who loves sugary beverages. However, this can of soda represents our transition and our hope for the best future in the States. The can of Pepsi represents the American dream we have been wanting, the hope that we have in our hearts, and the discovery that we will face. This photo showed my humble and simple life that I had, the struggles that we face, the dreams we want as reality, and the families that are forever in our hearts. As refugees fled Vietnam and others later moved through asylum application, communities were popping up in different parts of the country. Most reside in California and Texas where my family lived. Over 1.3 million Vietnamese-born immigrants now reside in the United States. For many, it was a dream come true as it brought hope and opportunities. Most became successful and in turn built Vietnamese communities as a way to support those newly arriving in. The communities were strong as it provided a language, resources, and cultural meaning for those living there. Without these communities, Vietnamese immigrants would have faced certain difficulty adjusting in the US. One of them was a language barrier which limited employment for many. Others faced the issue of mental health as survivors had to deal with trauma from the war and family separation. However, through these obstacles, Vietnamese communities in the US have become one of the largest growing establishments and ethnicity less likely to face poverty. When my family established ourselves in 1995 on the southwest side of Houston, it was only a matter of time when our determination began to flourish. Unable to speak English, my parents did whatever they could to pay the bills and build our lives from scratch. My sister went to school and worked at the same time to help support my mom. I consider myself the lucky one as I only had to worry about school, since that's what they wanted. Fast forward 13 years later, here I stand with my family in my college graduation gown, ready to take on the world. I was the first generation of my family to graduate in the US. My sisters weren't so lucky as they struggled in school while working. However, they were able to establish their own families and have their own loving homes. It was also the help of the community and raw persistence that we were able to get to where we are right now. As I stood in the picture, eyes filled with hope, I wouldn't have thought that a boy with a Pepsi in his hand would be in a graduation gown years later. The Pepsi represented the American dream, which later became a diploma of success and reality of those dreams. What helped create that is the love of a family, the strength of a community, the histories of the brave, and the power of the mind.